Hello, Rick here again for another cultural index. This time we're looking at the Romulan Empire, provided they aren't cloaked and therefore invisible. This xenophobic and secretive race is Earth's oldest adversary and has undergone several iterations. The Romulan Star Empire is one of the major political powers in the Star Trek galaxy, spanning several major systems and bordering both Klingon and Federation space. This territory was seized by the Romulans over the course of their expansion, and evidence of their conquering mindset and militaristic attitude. However, their philosophy extends beyond the principle of might is right, as they practice political scheming and subterfuge to destabilise before they conquer. It's a tactic that has served them well over the years and has earned them the infamy of fighting unfairly. In fact, the Romulan people understand, perhaps more than most, the power of knowledge and the need for secrecy. Earth clashed with the Romulan Empire in 2156, and battles took place both on the ground and in space, but despite all of this, it's said that no human ever saw a Romulan in person, as the design of the Romulans' vessels incorporated failsafes to deny the enemy any intelligence, including potential prisoners of war. It wasn't until the neutral zone incursion of 2266 that ship-to-ship communication was established and the lineage of the Romulan people became wider knowledge. They appear to be closely related to Vulcans, and in fact at one time were Vulcan colonists who disagreed with the teachings of Surak, choosing instead to retain their emotions. Their banner was that of a bird of prey, a raptor, and after leaving Vulcan chose to settle on other worlds, eventually fading from history, presumed by the Vulcans to have died out, as many early colonies had. However, the Romulans survived and settled on the twin planets, Romulus and Remus, the latter of which was already inhabited. The Romulans were quickly subjugated by the Romulans and used as a labour force. This set a precedent for slavery in the Empire, and in no small part was responsible for the stabilisation and rapid expansion it saw. This marked the start of a new culture for the Romulans, as they became one of the earliest interplanetary powers, their crest of the raptor clutching the two planets they had conquered. Free from the constraints of an emotionless view of the universe, the Romulans quickly adapted into a more proto-Vulcan attitude to technology, with the acquisition of power serving to fuel their aggressive expansion. Alliances with the Romulans have historically not ended well, with first the Klingons eventually turning on the Romulans, then the Cardassian-Romulan alliance ending in disaster at the hands of the Dominion. Ironically, the most stable relationship they have has been with the United Federation of Planets, after the establishment of the neutral zone, a border between their spaces that was occasionally tested but never dissolved. Their technology reflects their acquisition of power over any moral concerns. For example, the Romulan warbirds used a forced singularity as a power source, rather than the more stable and controllable matter-antimatter reactions of most other species. Their preference for powerful and painful disruptor weapons over the more tame phasers too reflects the mentality that power leads to success. Of course, knowledge is power too. The insidious Tal'Shiar is the intelligence branch of the Romulan government and commands respect through fear. Practically name-dropping the Tal'Shiar alone ensures cooperation from the populace and politicians alike. Although Romulus is ruled by a Senate, with the sheer amount of information and spies at the Tal'Shiar's disposal, it's not too far-fetched to suggest that the intelligence community holds the real power in the Empire. Speaking of the Senate, the highest political role in the Romulan Empire is that of the Praetor, who in turn is elected by the Continuing Committee. The committee oversees the largest decisions, and seats are awarded to positions such as the highest senators, the head of the Tal'Shiar, and proconsuls. Proconsul, not console. The influence of the Tal'Shiar and the Romulans' cultural disposition towards secrecy led the general populace to be cautious and reserved a lot of the time. In contrast to the Vulcans, who seek to suppress their emotions, it can be said that Romulans simply mask them, as they are a deeply passionate people, often motivated by their aggressive feelings. The Vulcan Index can offer some insight into how the species' aggressive tendencies and xenophobic attitudes evolved. It's not unusual for the government to take note of dissident movements among its populace and take steps to remove such elements. For your safety, you understand. Paranoia is common amongst the Romulan people, and loyalty to the Empire before all is expected from every citizen. those who seek to stay safe and prove their loyalty often have two courses of action. Exhibit curiosity and pry into their neighbours' affairs in the hopes of gaining leverage, reminiscent of how the Tal'Shiar works, or option 2, stay away from trouble and isolate yourself from it altogether. Military life is often seen as a way out of this paranoid lifestyle, so a large percentage of Romulus is militarised, with rank and standing affording greater freedom and status in society. For your standard citizen, however, this way of life is constant, but even the lowest Romulan stands atop the slaves the Empire has subjugated. All this inevitably leads to a conformist attitude among the people, where fashion, architecture, art and culture in general follow trends on a planetary scale. The square-shouldered look of clothing, supported by the military, spread into the civilian styles, and the Romulan equivalent of the crew cut becomes standard. Elements of their Vulcan heritage are present, but scarce. After settling a new system with a new ecosystem and resources, Romulan architecture changed to include more agriculture amongst its stone edifices, reminiscent of human Roman architecture. Romulan creation myths mirror Vulcan stories, however, as they speculate all life began on Vorta Vor, like the Vulcan Shakari or humans Eden. Older traditions still include the custom of inking tattoos upon the skin to commemorate the death of a loved one. This is unlikely to be common practice now due to the strict military code dominating Romulus's caste system. Amidst all this, growing sentiments among the people, particularly the youth, that the Romulan Empire should abandon its more secretive and secluded stance on politics and take a more diplomatic role with the Klingons, the Federation and other powers. One of the most prominent parties with this view is the Vulcan Unification movement, who wish to extend friendlier ties to their long separate cousins and learn of their shared heritage. Movements like this are becoming more frequent as the younger minds rise to the more influential positions, and acts like the scimitar attack incited by Praetor Shinzon serve to coax the Romulans towards integration and cooperation with the Federation. If things were left to develop along these lines naturally, there may have been a potential alliance in the works. Instead, a lot of the Romulans' culture was destroyed, along with their home system, when the Hobus supernova tore through subspace and destroyed Romulus, despite Vulcan intervention. This leaves the Romulans as a more nomadic people, once more reminiscent in a way to their early Vulcan days as colonists. While they have other planets to settle in their space, this instance served to fracture the Romulan Empire more drastically than ever before. A majority remained true to the old ways of isolationism, determined to rebuild the Romulan people themselves, while others used this as an opportunity to call in what little goodwill the Romulans had cultivated to break out from under the paranoia-inducing cloak of the Tal'Shiar and found their own independent colonies. This is where the canon Romulan story ends for now, with a fractured people seeking to begin again and rebuild what was lost. So there we go. The Romulans are personally one of my favourite sci-fi races, however I most definitely would not like to live among them for too long. And with that wrapped up, let's look towards the next cultural index. This time the options are for the Angarans of Mass Effect Andromeda, or the time-honoured Time Lords from Doctor Who. Like the appropriate comment below to cast your vote, and until then, I've been Rick and this has been the Cultural Index. Thanks sincerely for watching. Until next time, goodbye.
It's a fake.